Okay, well, welcome back. Check, check. Yeah, we're here. Okay. Obviously, the bottom right hand corner camera, which was the Microsoft LifeCam, has been moved from directly overhead looking down to off axis about 6 feet maybe, 5 feet maybe, away from the edge of the table. Um, the main reason is so that I can capture the whole table. This is a 5 by 5, and based on the height, right, from camera in the ceiling to the table, I couldn't see the whole thing from being directly above uh, the game. uh, Word up. um, when you buy a house, make sure your basements are 10-foot ceilings. Okay. If it doesn't come with a 10-foot ceiling, don't buy the house. Or move. But if you're going to do anything like this at all, you got to have at least a 10-foot ceiling. And if they say, well, we don't do that, well, yes, you do. You simply have to cut the hole in the ground 2 feet more. So when they start building your house, go to them and say, hey guys, look, just cut 2 feet deeper, and then we'll pay it. But just cut 2 feet deeper so that the basement ceiling's at least 10 feet. Well, why do you want that? Doesn't matter, right? None of your business. NYB. None of you. Well, NOYB. Anyway, Excalibur. The work is completed. All the buildings have been printed and they are glued onto 3-inch round discs. Why? So that when you're setting up the table, you don't have all these little buildings everywhere. Well, why do you even have the buildings? Because they're cute. They look neat. And they're not painted yet, but I mean, they'll look like a little village, right? A little manor, little English countryside. And you could add little accoutrements on there, like little hedgerows and stuff. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really exciting. And I have now got, because of the trees that I've got, which are pom poms, as you can see, the effect is extraordinary. And I now have new respect for 6 millimeter scale games, or actually, this might be, yeah, it's about 6 millimeter. At least the building's opening is about 6 millimeter, roughly. The buildings were bigger, but I scaled them down to make them print so they wouldn't take so long to print. And it has been printing for weeks. And this is low resolution. But that's just how many buildings there are. Well, why did I print so many? Because I don't want to have just 2 buildings on a manor disk, or 3 buildings on a manor disk. So I want at least 4. And when you look at the artwork, there's 4 buildings. Make sure I'm still recording. Yeah, there's 4 buildings, essentially maybe 5, around a central milepost, the center of the manor. Oh yeah, this reminds me. Coffee. Oh, um, the fortified manor. What what's a fortified manor? A fortified manor is a fortified manor. It's a manor that has been walled, protected for reasons not just military, could be agricultural, but at any rate, it has walls around it. And are those parapets? People get up on the walls? No, not necessarily. It just means that it's not an open field walking across and going right into someone's house, right? Around the manor property. It's basically there's a wall all the way around it. So we just called it fortified manor. How are you going to show that now that the buildings are glued to the discs? Well, we had a little representation of a walled city, but that was meant to go around a building. But now that the buildings are glued to the discs, we have to come up with something else. So I'm thinking just maybe a symbol. And that symbol could be a red hotel from Monopoly, saying, hey, this manor's fortified. It'd be cool to come up with a different icon, but the red stands out. And that's probably what we'll do. I mean, we don't have to print nothing. And it looks like, a big building. Or I could print those red hotels. Or I could paint them. I don't think there's any reason to print them because there's so many in Monopoly that I could just paint one of those red um, brick or well, just red hotels from Monopoly, and I don't know, maybe just paint it really nice or something. Uh, anyway, maybe I'll print something. Maybe what I'll do, you know what, this might be actually a smarter thing to do. And maybe I'll do this right now. Thank God for Thingiverse again. If I can obtain maybe a building with high walls around it that would fit right in the middle of the disc, then that would be just as good and prettier than the bland red Monopoly hotel. Okay, so obviously, thank you for all your comments. We have obviously purchased in one phase the pom pom green. I'm sorry, the pom poms that we had to paint ourselves. You can see that that was kind of like a matte green paint. Then we discovered they were already green, but this is kind of an emerald green, and I'm not a big fan. Or you might say it's a Kelly green. It's a fairly bright green. It's not natural. It's not a natural green, right? It's not a leaf green. Well, it's kind of a golf course green, I suppose. Anyway, I'm not a fan. Anyway, as you know, as I mentioned it before, all the little pom-poms were glued to a cardboard base. I don't know if you can see that. So they're glued to a little cardboard. There's the pom-poms, there's the base. They're just hot glued and stuck on. That's it. And there's a couple of things to note about doing this. One, some of the forest tracks in the game are actually separated. There's a separation showing that one of those tracks or more, because of the brown color going through the forest, means that that track belongs to a different manor. So one tract goes to one manor and another track goes to another manor. So that's why that little line exists. So when you put down these realistic trees, well, when you put down the representation of when you put down the pom-poms, you cover all that stuff up. Also, we have over time modified the map itself from the extraordinarily beautiful original, and we've taken away the size. Well, we've redone all the lettering of the map. And on each of the discs, we've label printed what the manor is. So the problem with the original map is it's not meant for terrain to be put on it. So when you put the trees down, you're covering up the name of a manor, because sometimes the name of a manor is in the forest. So that's gone. And then all the words, all the letters are color-coded because that's the same parish. We've taken that away as well. Let's imagine this, if you will. Take a Monopoly game, imagine it in your head. There's blue, there's yellow, pink, light blue, green properties, purple, which is my favorite, personal favorite. Imagine those colors didn't exist. How would you know what your Monopoly set of properties is? Well, you don't. I mean, your opponent doesn't. You do. So let's imagine, if you will, forget about Park Place and Boardwalk on the Monopoly game. Imagine that you can hide your properties from the opponent so they can't buy them. Or they can, but they won't know if that's part of your parish, your Monopoly, right? Same here. When we redid all the lettering, we just made it black letters. And now none of the players can know who's got what in their parish. And that's an idea that I think is going to work. Because if I don't know what you've got in your parish, how do I know what properties to take from you? Or to take so you can't get them? I don't. So every game, you can change it. Because the colors of the manors are all the same color. Black. Just lettering. But say you have a scenario card. Now you have another new innovation. You can actually have scenario cards that show what your parish is. 2-player game, your parish might be just 4 properties. A 4-player game could be 6 properties, etc., etc. So now things get, really interesting. Actually, I may have just misspoke that. The more players you have, the fewer properties you have in your parish. But there's a, plateau. If you just have 2 players, you don't want to have 20 properties. You want to have just like maybe 5. Like I said, 4. But if you have 6 players and there's a 40 total number of properties on the game, then you might say, man, let's leave some, unoccupied no matter what happens. Each player's parish maybe can only be 5. So if there's 6 players, that's 30 properties. That leaves about 10 properties unclaimed or unclaimable is the point. Those properties could remain barbarians or Celts, Scots, Welsh, whatever. Okay, just, all right, just kidding. All right, so that's it. And we're ready to, yes, I know, it's hard to believe, we're actually ready to begin a game sample. Now, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to figure out how this works. It's basically medieval Monopoly, literally. Except in this game, unlike Monopoly, you're improving each one of your manors by putting on a beehive, a watermill, a windmill, a dock for the river, which is the so-called river reeve, and a forest reeve, okay, a forest worker, person or family. And all these things at the end of the year are tallied up, and that becomes your income for that manor. And that's it. I mean, it's a wonderful concept, and it predates Axis and Allies. And as I say, it predates Settlers of Catan, that whole series, because this is old. And of course, you can't get it anywhere. But, we have the digitized copy of the map. So all you need to do is print 3D miniatures, get yourself some pom-poms, and print the map out on fabric or whatever you like. But 5 by 5 feet, man, you could go to 4 by 4. That's true. This could be 1 foot smaller all the way around. It could be. And that would fit beautifully on a 4 by 4 card table. But this is 5 by 5. All right, so we'll come back. So yes, we need to rejuvenate, rest, and get back into describing. Oh, well, we'll play a couple of turns very closely, not from this distance. That camera is pretty far away, but you get the idea. We'll do this camera here. Where is it? This guy, right there. Okay, so this guy right here, his camera looks pretty good. He's looking down at basically Betsley, Corley St. George over here, and then you can see Barfield and everybody's favorite Corley St. George, because it's got the most capabilities. And also, what do I mean when I say that? Capabilities for improvement? Because in the original game, everybody had a property card just like Monopoly. That property card shows what the capabilities are for that property. How many tracts of pasture, field, forest, and water that the property has, that manor has. And regardless, if it's got 10 fields, you can only put 1 beehive, right? You can't put a beehive on every field. It doesn't work that way. You can, if it has a water tract, you can only put 1. If it has 2 water tracts, you can only put 1 water mill. Maybe it has 3 forest tracts. You can only put 1 forest worker. So you get the idea. And before I sign off, also I wanted to show, you probably can't see it, but I'll try it. It's a little windmill, not in the original game. So I said to myself, and this was in a previous episode, all the guys that are in the prairie that don't have access to water don't get mills, because it's only water mills at this era. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think they had windmills pretty much at the same time as water mills. Anyway, so if they didn't, too bad. I'll make them anyway. Got windmills. And maybe not that many, but enough to make it possible that if you want to buy a windmill for your property, you can. And then I've created some sheepus. Okay, a little sheep token. And what does that mean? I don't actually know right now. But I suppose it just looks good on the game table. And it kind of comes from Settlers of Catan, a little sheep icon. I saw it that they had an icon in Thingiverse, and I'm like, I think I want to do something like that. I don't know why though, because there's regulations for it. There's no rules for it in the game about having sheep, right? I mean, there's all kinds of agricultural things that you can put in the game, but I don't know what the sheep would signify. I know wool, of course, but what does that mean? I don't know. Your troops have good uniforms? Don't know. Everybody gets to have, a shepherd's pie? I don't know. But they just look cool, little tiny dots of white on this green map. All right, so there we are, and we'll come back. I really, as you can tell, I'm very excited about this. I hope to be running this a Little Wars. Uh, it just looks like a heck of a lot of fun, uh, and at the same time, potentially boring. Because why? Because even when you play Monopoly, sometimes you're like, you know what, I can see how this is going to go. Let's quit, and then you end up quitting. Because when one person gets a property, as soon as the first person gets a monopoly, like all the oranges and yeah, all the orange properties or the yellows, it's pretty much going to be over if you land on that. And especially, if, although there's only two, the blues, the Park Place and the Boardwalk. If they improve that by putting a house on it and you land on it, you're pretty much done. So, you know, in this same kind of thing here. There is, then there should be, well, there is. In the rules, I do have printed rules. It's not just all in the head. The printed rules show all the properties listed, and those properties have values. So you can see by the values listed next to the property which are the most important, valuable properties that will bring in the most money. All right, so we will come back. Thanks again for your patience and your comments.